Hello everyone, I just wanted to make a YouTube video showing off and discussing my Make Everything machine. So as you can see, there's 6 different segments here and they all work together to produce any item in the game that you want at any quality level. And that's actually why I built this. This is my approach to quality. It's more of a bottom-up approach. As you can see, we're smelting with quality modules to get higher quality ingredients that we can use to craft those higher quality intermediates and finally those high quality, whatever you want, refineries or crafters, so on and so forth. I think this enables not only a more resource efficient but also a faster approach to getting a large number of differing high quality buildings than you could get with those, like a little mini machine where it crafts the item and then recycles it if it's below a certain quality threshold. I didn't like that approach. That's what I have been doing before this, but I've moved on to this design here. So I could try to explain with what's happening in these little cell blocks right here where the actual logic takes place, but I'm going to do it over here in my expanded version. So over here, it's just set up to be crafting these iron gears. Now let's turn off these, and then we have to clear the cell from its memory, so that way it forgets what I told it to do before. Probably should have done that before recording, but it's fine. Alright, so as you see, the machine isn't working right now. These combinators over here are usually, well, this one and this one are usually replaced by a larger machine, a logic and encoders that record every single recipe I want to craft and the item for it. So let's just pretend like it sent in the information to craft these gears, goes through and sets the request, which will then the robots will start bringing these over. Now, before these memory cells over here get that information, it's important for us to check 2 things. First, we want to check to see if this is even the right group number. So we want to make sure that it's group 100, which is going to be our quality crafters. If it is, we want to check to make sure that there's not other machines crafting this, and if there are, that there's less than our number that we have attached to the item. So here we have 2, right? 2 iron gear, which means that we can have 2 of these blocks crafting iron gears at any time. So let's go see. So yep, our request 2 is greater than the number that we currently have, 1, which means that we can then set this machine to craft iron gears. And then it goes to the memory cells, which will just permanently remember what they're crafting, even if our machine over here, that I'll show later, but even if the machine that sends in the requests changes what its requests are while this is crafting, those requests will simply cycle right on through this one and get passed on to the next one. It won't disrupt what this one's doing. So this will now go indefinitely. Memory cells won't ever forget what they have. However, if they receive the signal X, they'll clear and they'll begin to accept any new input that comes in their way, any new recipe, any new crafting target. So when would we want this X to turn on? Well, we want it to turn on if we reach the quota. The quota is just how much you would want at a time. So over here I set it to be a -100, which means that I want to have 100 gears at any time. Now, if I hook up this right here to the robo port, it'll stop immediately what it's doing because we have over 100 gears in my storage. So look, immediately stops what it's doing, and now it's going to wait for any new request. Now let's turn that back off and turn these back on. All right, there we go. It's running just as we would hope. Another thing that might happen is, look, there's no iron in this chest. These machines are just stalling. Whenever that happens, this machine kicks on, and what it does, it says, oh, no one's working, time to start counting, and it starts counting all the way up until whatever number of game ticks as you want. And then once it reaches that game tick, it will clear what they're doing. Now, hopefully that never happens with iron. We don't want to be running out of iron to craft our gears, but if that does happen, it will cancel. Now, this is scalable. The whole idea is to have multiple of these running at a time. which right here we just have one of each running, but over here I have a more expanded approach where you can see I have many different smelters over here, and then I've got, you know, my crafters up here. Now I don't want to turn this on right now to show you guys how crazy and cool it is, because I just went through and updated all of these machines and found some bugs that were stopping it from actually working, so I'm not gonna hook this up right now, but I will in a later video. So over here, this is all of the encoding. So you can see these little symbols down here, shows what this column is actually encoding. It looks very complicated, I promise it's not. All we're doing is we're saying, hey, take the number of iron in storage and subtract it, iron plates in storage, and subtract it by our quota. And then encode the recipe. So for each iron, we need 1 iron ore. So then send in how much iron ore we would need. And then over here, we're also encoding all of this extra information that isn't in the recipe. The C is the number of cells that can craft it at a time. So I want to allow up to 12 different crafters to craft, 12 different smelters to smelt iron ore into iron plates. Q is the maximum quality to consider for this recipe. So I don't want to use my legendary iron ore on plates. I'd rather use them on concrete. The quality is very useful. There's some things that you don't need to be legendary, such as your like rail signals, your belts, things like that. R is the request multiplier. The ingredients get multiplied by R when they go to the requester chest, so that way you can request like 50 times what you would need to craft one inside of the requester chest. So that way they're not idling for very long. And then this G down here is just that group number. So obviously with these, there's gonna be group 200, which is what I've designated the smelter group to be. Once we have that quota information, this right here, this little machine, all it does is it extends this quota to all the different qualities. So I want to be having, 120,000 epic iron plates if I can, but the way that we actually check to see if we can even craft that is over here. Now each of these columns is a different quality, so I've kind of marked them with this color here, but this is normal, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. And over here we have oil, but that's just because it's different, the way that I encoded the recipes for oil. Now what we're doing is we're just comparing what we have in storage to what we would need to craft up to the quota amount. So let's say iron, right? We're in the deficit 54,000. So this is just saying, do we have 54,000 iron ore? And a few other checks before it sends it off to get crafted. So over here we can see in real time the requests that this machine is spitting out. And then they go into all these machines, and if any of them can be crafted by these machines, they will be. Now, if they're busy, they're not going to cancel their order. But let's say, circuits came in, then this thing would start immediately crafting up circuits. And then for recycling things, I just have this little system down here. I will be expanding on this and improving on it in future versions, but all this is doing is saying, yeah, if we don't have however many legendary, start recycling the worst versions of it. So obviously I'm trying to get some legendary refineries and some legendary exoskeletons because I want to go fast. That's the design. I'll happily share the blueprints for it once I have it all finalized. If you have any questions or comments, just let me know, and I'll be happy to help and discuss this further. Thank you so much.